Hello students, how are you all today? This is Ashar Khan from Shiv Jyoti Educational Group Kota, and I hope you are all well at home. Now students, today we are revising our last chapter of civics, okay, that is chapter number 4, key elements of a democratic government. Okay, we will be doing a thorough revision of this chapter. So please open your civics book on page number 35. Okay, keep your pencil in your hand as well, because like always, we will be marking internal questions and answers after we have discussed the points to remember. Okay, and then finally we will move on to our copywork question. So students, if you have not done your copywork, then please do so, because the questions will be coming in your exams. So students, let us begin chapter number 4, that is key elements of a democratic government. In this chapter, students, we learned about what makes a government democratic. In chapter number 3, we learned about the democracy, right? We learned about the democracy form of government. Now in this chapter, we learned that what makes the government democratic. Okay, so the points to remember, the first point here is apartheid. Okay, what did we learn about apartheid? Let us see. So students, you all know that apartheid is an African word. Okay, it's an African word, and what does this mean? It means separation on the basis of race. Okay, when people are divided on the basis of their race, on the basis of colors, for that we have a word in African language, and that is called apartheid. And how is it relevant to this chapter? Students, we learned about the story of Hector. Do you remember that we learned about the story of Hector, who was a boy, 14-year-old boy, who wanted to learn his native language, which was Zulu, right? But the colonial government who was ruling over them, who was ruling over Africa during that time, they did not allow them. They wanted the natives of that place to learn Afrikaans language. Okay, but Hector was a student who wanted to learn Zulu language, because that was a native language of his people. Okay, that was his cultural language. So what happened? Hector protested against the government. Now, what did the government do? The government started attacking the students who were protesting silently, peacefully. The government started to attack them, and then what happened? Hector was killed because of a bullet wound. Okay. Now, let's see what are elections. Elections are people's way of electing their leader. When we choose our leader, जब हम हमारे leaders को choose करते हैं, right? उस process को हम क्या बोलते हैं? Election. A lot of candidates, they stand up in elections, okay, they carry out their campaigns, and on the day of election, citizens go to the election polling booth, okay, they go to the election polling booth, and then they cast their vote. Other ways of participating. So one method of participating is elections. Okay, we choose our leaders by electing them, by voting for them. What is the other way of participating? There are other ways that we can participate in the process making of the government is dharnas, rallies, strikes, that we will discuss in our question answers. Then methods of resolving conflicts. Another very important thing about democratic government is that they allow to resolve conflicts. Whenever there is a conflicting going on between any two parties, ठीक है, कुछ मनमुटाव या कुछ संघर्ष चल रहा हो, okay, some bad war or some kind of argument is going on, then democratic government requires, it gives a peaceful way of solving that conflict, which is not possible in other forms of government. Okay, so democratic government is a very better form of government. So students, let's mark the internal questions now. Please open your book on page number 36. On page number 36, you will write your first internal question, that is, name the language Hector wanted to learn. Okay, which was the language that Hector wanted to learn? We learned it in the story of Hector. First, write the question. Okay, on page number 36, there is a blank space there. Right, simply write your question there with your pencil. Do not use pen in your book. Okay, after you have written the question, let's see what the answer was. The language which Hector wanted to learn was Zulu. Okay, you can underline this in the first para, fourth line. It is marked here, the fourth line, Zulu, or simply you can write it right below the question itself. It's a one-word answer. Okay, so what was the language that Hector wanted to learn? कौन सी भाषा थी वो? It was Zulu. Okay, moving on to the second question which you will find on page number 38. Please open your book on page number 38. Okay, students, if you need time to write the question properly, you can pause the video, write the question and then play it again. Question number 2 is, what are the ways by which people express their views against government? Okay, there are some ways in which people they express their views by going against government. Government के खिलाफ वो अपने views को बता सकते हैं. What are some ways? Okay, first let us understand the answer. The ways are धरनाज, rallies, strikes, signature campaigns, etc. ये वो तरीके हैं जिससे जो लोग हैं वो अपनी आवाज़ गवर्नमेंट तक पहुंचा सकते हैं. ओके, these are some ways by which people can express their views, what we are thinking about government's policies. After we have elected the government is ruling over us for 5 years. That doesn't mean that they can do whatever they want. If the government did something which is not liked by the people, they can organize dharnas, rallies, strikes and signature campaigns so that their voices can be heard. Okay, now mark the answer in the first para on page number 38. Okay, in the 5th line it is written clearly, dharnas, rallies, strikes, signature campaigns, etc. Okay, write the question at the blank space here and mark the answer in the first paragraph, 5th line of page number 38. Okay, I hope you have marked it and understood well. Moving on to the copywork of the chapter, let's go through this. Name a well-known leader of the African National Congress. African National Congress was a party which led the freedom struggle of Africa. Who was the leader of that party? Okay, Nelson Mandela was a well-known leader of the African National Congress. Who was the leader? Nelson Mandela. Okay, pay close attention to the spelling. Now, which river is the cause of dispute between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu? There is a river which is the cause of dispute, जिस पे लड़ाई हो रही है किन दो states के बीच में, कर्नाटक and Tamil Nadu. What is the name of that river? Kaveri river is the main cause of dispute between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. I explained it to you in the explanation video of the chapter. So if you have any doubts regarding this, please go back and watch that video again where I am explaining the issue of Kaveri river between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Okay. Which languages were spoken by blacks and whites in South Africa? In South Africa, there were 3 races. There were blacks, whites and Indians who were called coloreds. Okay, so what were the languages which were spoken by blacks and whites in South Africa? Zulu and Afrikaans were the 2 languages spoken by blacks and whites in South Africa. What were the name of 2 languages? These are South African languages. Okay, Zulu and Afrikaans. Okay. What do you mean by apartheid? Very simple, I just explained it to you. Apartheid means separation of people on the basis of race. जब हम race means हमारा जो skin color है उसके basis पे लोगों को बांटते हैं, separate करते हैं, उसके लिए हम एक word देते हैं and that what is called apartheid. Okay. Next question. What laws were imposed on the different races in South Africa? There were some laws which were imposed on the different races. There was a clear separation, segregation between white, blacks and coloreds. So उनके laws भी अलग अलग थे. Let's see what the laws were. South African people were divided into whites, blacks, Indians and colored races. This I already told you that South African जो society थी उसको white means people who have fair skin, black who have very dark skin, Indians and colored whose skin is wheatish. Okay, according to the law. Now, what was the law? What was the rule? According to the law, these races were not allowed to mingle with each other. Because of apartheid, जो लोग थे उनको उनके कलर के बेसिस पे बांट दिया था and they were not allowed to mingle. They could not live together, talk to each other or interact with each other. Okay, they were not allowed to mingle with each other, to live near each other or even to use common facilities. Means you could not use a bus which was meant for white people only. You could not use an ambulance, hospital, library, restrooms which were meant for whites or blacks or Indians. You were supposed to use the restroom or public facilities which were meant for your race. There were different parks, different hospitals, okay. And sometimes what used to happen that the hospitals and ambulances of blacks were not as equipped as they were of whites, okay. People were very much badly treated in South Africa in that time. Now, why do you think we need the government to find solutions to many disputes or conflicts? Why do we need a government to solve our disputes? हमारे बीच में जो लड़ाइयाँ होती हैं, why do we need our government to solve that? Okay, see, conflicts between two social groups can turn into ugly form if people are left on their own. Supposedly, if two people are arguing and no one comes and solves their query, what will happen? It can turn ugly, they can start fighting, okay? So what happen? If the government does not intervene, the situation may turn violent, and that is why जो government होती है वो क्या करती है? Conflicting जो parties हैं उनके बीच में solution देती है, okay? It gives a peaceful way of solving their conflicts. So the government does not intervene, the situation may turn violent. So we need the government to find solutions to many disputes or conflicts, and that is why we need the government, so that we can solve our disputes and conflicts in a peaceful way. Next question, why is voting important in a democracy? This you already must be knowing that voting is a very important task, okay? But why is it important in a democratic form of government? Voting is important because through voting in elections, people elect leaders to represent them. Voting जो process होता है, what do? We elect our leaders, okay? हम उन लोगों को elect करते हैं, the people who will make rule on us, who will make their rules and laws for us. These representatives take decisions on behalf of the people, and in doing so it is assumed that they will keep in mind the voices and interests of the people who elected them. A very good thing कि जिन लोगों को हमने वोट दिया है, the people that we have voted, now they are making decisions on behalf of the people, they are making decisions on behalf on us, right? Now we assume that they will keep in mind the voices and interests, what I want to do, what the society wants, they will keep that in mind while making those decisions, while making those rules. If they make a rule or a law which is not accepted by the society, which is not good for society, the people will not vote for them again in the next election, right? Now, how can rivers become a source of conflict in a country? We learnt about Kaveri river, right? So how can rivers become a source of conflict? Nadi ko leke kaise ladai hoti hai? Let's see. Rivers can become a source of conflict between states. A river may begin in one state, flow through another, and end in a third. Now a river can start flowing from one state, then flow from the second, and then end in the third state. Now that river's water is being utilized by all the states, okay? Now people can start fighting that which state will get more water on that river, right? The sharing of river water between different states that the river goes through becomes an issue of conflict. वो नदी जिन भी स्टेट से बह रही है, okay, the people can say that we are not getting an equal share of water, okay, and that is how it can become an issue of conflict, which is exactly what happened in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. What action does the government take to ensure that all people are treated equally? One of the very main principle of a democratic government is that it ensures equality amongst people. कि लोगों के बीच में क्या होगी? Equality होगी. So what actions can the government take to ensure this? Let's see. The government takes the following actions to ensure equality. First, the Constitution considers all citizens as equal. The supreme law of India, which is the Constitution, okay, उसमें क्या लिखा हुआ है? That all citizen means people who are living in India will be considered as equal, and there is no difference, no discrimination on the basis of religion, caste, gender or economic status. Do you remember we learned diversity, students, about how people are different, right? So we learned that people can be different about religion, caste, gender and economic status, means rich or poor. But our Constitution says that all citizens will be considered as equal and there will be no discrimination on the basis of religion, caste, gender or economic status, okay? People from backward sections of the society are given reservations in government jobs and educational institutions. Now people who are in backward sections, people who are not economically well or educated, okay, who are not educated, they are given reservation in government jobs and educational institution, colleges, jobs में उनको reservation मिलता है, so that they can also come forward. Next question. What are the various ways in which people participate in the process of government? Other ways we have to find out in which people participate in the process of government. The ways in which people participate in the process of government are as follows. Number one, election. Our first method by which we participate in election is election. Electing their representatives by voting in periodic election. Whenever election happens, we go and vote for our leaders, and that is how we decide who will form the government. Okay, the party which gets the most amount of vote, they will automatically win. अनदर थिंग, आफ्टर वी हैव इलेक्टेड द गवर्नमेंट, उसके बाद हम कैसे गवर्नमेंट के अफेक्ट कर सकते हैं, पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते हैं. सी, बाय मास प्रोटेस्ट वी कैन गैदर अ लार्ज अमाउंट ऑफ पीपल, लाइक रैलीज, strike, signature campaigns, so that the government will hear them. Media will show these in their newspapers and televisions, and the government will have to address them. Okay, by expressing their views and criticizing the government on social media, television and newspaper. And one of the very main principle of democratic government is that people can criticize it. लोग क्या कर सकते हैं, government की बुराई कर सकते हैं. It is one of their rights to criticize the government and what it is doing. They can do so on social media, on television and newspaper, and the government cannot do anything to stop them. Why? Because by criticizing the government we are letting them know कि आपकी गलती कहाँ पर है, right? Okay, so these were some of the methods through which people can participate in the process of government. So students, that was it for our chapter number 4. I hope you all learned well. Still, if you have any doubts, please attend the live doubt class and we will solve your query there. Thank you.